Greetings! It's Black History Month in America. I am Anthony F. Elmore, President and founder of Proud Black Buddhist World Association, excited to bring to you today our Black Buddhist History Month lecture. Now, I started officially practicing Buddhism in 1970 when I was 17 years old. Now, I have been practicing Buddhism for 48 years. And in the 48 years of my Buddhist practice, I bring something very unique and special to the Buddhist religion, in that we bring a Black Buddhist voice. Now, when it comes to Buddhism, we were the first to begin a Black Buddhist website. We have more lectures in regards to Black and Buddhism that if you were to take all of the Black people in the world and you combine all their lectures on YouTube, we would still have more lectures than any or all Black people in the world combined. We are the Proud Black Buddhist World Association, and we tell Buddhism, or we teach Buddhism in regards that's inclusive of our Black history, culture, and language. Now, it is Black History Month in America, and the best way to present to you our exciting Black Buddhist History Lecture of 2018 is for us to present to you a trailer from the upcoming movie, The Black Panther. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the Black Panther exemplifies the spirit of the Proud Black Buddhists. Let's watch a trailer from the movie, The Black Panther, and we're going to come back and we're going to get into our Proud Black Buddhist History Lecture. Let's watch the trailer and we'll come back and get into our lecture.
I have seen gods fly. I've seen men build weapons that I couldn't even imagine. I've seen aliens drop from the sky.
Yeah.
But I have never seen anything like this. How much more are you hiding?
Hold up. Let's go.
We are home. My son, it is your time.
Show me my respect and bow down.
You get to decide what kind of king you are going to be. Don't freeze.
I never freeze.
The revolution will not be televised.
Show me my respect and bow down. We own ya. We own ya. We only getting started now, cause we own ya. Everybody think they know me now, cause we own ya. You and I'm my homie now, cause we own ya.
I waited my entire life for this. The world's gonna start over. I'ma burn it all.
What happens now determines what happens to the rest of the world.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out.
What's going on forever?
The revolution will not be televised.
Let's have some fun.
The revolution will be live.
Tell me something.
What do you know about Wakanda?
It's a third world country. Textiles, shepherds, cool outfits.
All front. Explain. explorers have searched for it. Called it El Dorado. They looked for it in South America. But it was in Africa the whole time. I'm the only one who's seen it and made it out alive.
I can see you.
The world is changing. Soon, there will only be the conquered and the conquerors.
Step into the spotlight.
You are a good man
Step into the spotlight.
with a good heart. And it's hard for a good man to be a king.
You see the trailer of the Black Panther movie. In order to get a clear and concise understanding of the Buddhist religion, you have to look at Buddhism outside the realm of white people and Asians. You see, ladies and gentlemen, Buddhism or Buddhist history is black history. In order to understand Buddhist history, you must understand the world as the way it was in terms of history, that Buddhism did not include whites and Buddhism did not include Asia. Please understand, ladies and gentlemen, that it was over 1,000 years after the Buddha's death that Buddhism, or rather the Lotus Sutra, arrived in Asia. Now, let's get into our lecture. Now, in order to understand early Buddhism, there is no such thing as a white Buddhist or white people associated with Buddhism. Please understand that all of the early Indians and early Asians were black people. All early Buddhist history, its language and its culture is that of black people. You see, most of early Europe was black people. Around the time of the Afro-Greek writer Homer, India was known as Eastern Ethiopia. See, archaeology, anthropology, genetic science, literary science, and linguistic science all show that the Indus Valley civilization was that of black people. So India and all the area was that of black people. You see, the black culture, this black culture of the Indus Valley civilization was known as the Sarasvati River civilization. And this civilization was one of the most advanced civilizations or cities in the history of humankind. In fact, they had running water, they had indoor toilets, and it was 2,000 years before people who we know today as white people had came up with a city as comparable to that of the Sarasvati River of the Indus Valley civilization. This is also known as the Harappan civilization. Now, please understand that the word race is a social construct that was created by the Hindu around 1900 years ago. You see, the word Hindu and the word Sanskrit does not exist in ancient writings. Now, please understand this. You see, a recent study of human origins note that white skin developed in Europe only as recently as 8,000 years ago, say anthropologists. The facts are clear. There never existed any human beings we know today as white people over 8,000 years ago. So what does this tell you? This should tell you that if there were no white people beyond 8,000 years ago, there could not have been any what we call Oriental people. You see, Oriental people are a mixture of black people and white people, and this is where the Oriental people come from. Now, Nichiren, what we do, let me give you a clear perspective. You see, we who practice teachings at the proud Black Buddhist World Association practice the teachings, or the Buddhist teachings, as taught by the 13th century Black Japanese Buddhist sage Nichiren Shonin. Now the word Nichiren means sun lotus and Shonin means priest. Now it was Nichiren who taught, or who professed, and who taught that the Buddhist, or the Buddha's highest teachings, is that only of the Lotus Sutra. And Nichiren teaches us that Shakyamuni Buddha first intoned the word Myoho Renge Kyo, which is the title of the Lotus Sutra. Now, let's get into this a little bit. Now, the title of the Lotus Sutra is Myoho Renge Kyo. Now, the word Myo means correct. It also means incomprehensible. It also means mystic. Now, the most important definition of the word Myo, it means to open. Now, we come to the meaning of the word Ho. See, Ho means manifestation of the universal law. It is the mystic law of Myoho. You see, life is a mystic law. It's a manifestation of the mystic law. Now, what the Buddha did, the Buddha used a metaphor to explain Myoho. The metaphor to explain Myoho, explain mystic law, he used the metaphor of the lotus flower, where the flower and the seed comes together. This means the simultaneousness of the law of cause and effect. You see, the Buddha teach that the law of cause and effect is not two laws, but Myoho or Renge. Renge means the simultaneousness or the oneness of the law of cause and effect, and this is exemplified by the lotus flower. Now, in order to explain Myoho Renge, the Buddha Shakyamuni came up with the word Kyo. Now, Kyo means not only all of the teachings of the Buddha, but Kyo means all of the teachings of the universe. In essence, Kyo means to dispel delusion. So, Kyo means sound. Kyo means teaching. Kyo means the voice. Kyo means vibrations. Now let us move back to the 13th century Black Japanese Buddhist sage Nichiren. See, Nichiren understood that to grasp the teachings of the Lotus Sutra, we must awaken to the Lotus Sutra. Nichiren noted that the way to become awakened to the Lotus Sutra, we must devote ourselves to the Lotus Sutra. And Nichiren came up with a black word. Now the black word is from the Pali language, and the word is Namu. Just Google the word Namu. Namu means to awaken. So what do? We in essence awaken, or we do myo, we open to the what? Myo means correct law of cause and effect teachings. Now, see, this is relevant. See, it means that we must awaken to the correct law of cause and effect teachings. It is not relevant white people or Asian people or any Buddhist religion sect. See, we at the Proud Black Buddhists awaken to the correct cause and effect teachings. Now, one aspect of cause and effect teachings manifests as Black History Month. Why did Dr. Carter G. Woodson create Black History Month? He created Black History Month because whites extricated or do not tell Black history, and whites created what we call a delusion. Now, we use Kyo to overcome delusion. So, when we chant Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, we use this as a teachings to overcome delusion. So when you study Black history or Black Buddhist history, you are practicing Buddhism, because Buddhism means, in terms of the Lotus Sutra, we chant Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. In other words, we awaken to the correct law of cause and effect teaching. You see, prior to 8,000 years ago, ladies and gentlemen, people we know as white people did not exist. You see, in a recent anthropological study, science found out, or through genetic science, we learned that light skin only happened 8,000 years ago. Now, let us move to the Black Panther movie. You see, we study ancient history, and all humans prior to 8,000 years ago is Black history. And the true facts of history is ancient history is Black history, because all people in the world prior to 8,000 years ago were Black people. Now, let us move to the 2nd century A.D., where we find humans known as white people. You see, ladies and gentlemen, in the 2nd century A.D., this is the time in history where white people had conquered India. The people who conquered India in the 2nd century A.D. was a Kushan king by the name of Kanishka. Now, King Kanishka conquered the Black people. And what King Kanishka did, he not only conquered the Black people, King Kanishka created the world's first racism, in that he created a Buddhism called Mahayana Buddhism that extricated all Black history, culture, and language out of Buddhism. Not only did it extricate all Black Buddhist history out of Buddhism, the new religion that King Kanishka created called Mahayana Buddhism, this is the time in history where they changed the Buddha from black to white. We know this by looking at the Gandhara carvings, where you see he changed the Buddha to look like a Greek. You see, white people did not practice Buddhism. The only time that you find white people who get introduced to Buddhism is when Alexander the Great tried to conquer India. And he ran up against a powerful group of Indians that had 80,000 elephants called the Nandas. Now, while Alexander retreated and decided that he could not go in there and beat these powerful Black people called the Nandas, Alexander brought back with him Buddhists. Now, they were not called Buddhists. They were called gymnosophists. The word gym means naked. Sophist means philosophers. And he brought these Buddhists back to Greeks with him, and they came up with a new religion. It's a combination of Buddhism and Hellenism, and it's called Hellenism. Hellenism is a combination of Greek culture and Buddhism. So the two came in, and the Greeks began to practice Buddhism. Now, ladies and gentlemen, now, you see, thanks to Buddhism in India, India would prosper and grow in science and in medicine. You see, Buddhism would spread not only in India, but it was King Ashoka who spread Buddhism around the world at that time. Now, please understand that India was controlled, or a part of India was controlled by the Ethiopians. Now, it's the Greeks who came up with the word Ethiopia. Now, during the time of the Black Greek writer, or the Afro-Greek writer Homer, India was known as Eastern Ethiopia. Now, you see, ladies and gentlemen, the Ethiopians control India. They were one in the same country. See, they had a king called Ari. Ari were great, tremendous sailors, and they would travel from Africa to India, and the two cultures blended. Now, it was in 185 BC where we had a king. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the Niners got conquered by the Muriams, and the Muriam, or Chandragupta Miriam, had a grandson by the name of King Osaka. King Osaka converted to Buddhism, and he had Buddhism to spread all over the world. This is the Miriam king. Now, in 185 BC, a Brahmin by the name of Pushyamitra killed the last Miriam king, I think it's Brutahata. He killed him, and the Brahmins came up with a cult. The Brahmins had a Buddhist cult, and they put a bounty on all Buddhists. And they came up with this Brahmanism, and they brought in white people to suppress the Buddhists and to fight the Buddhists, and the whites conquered them. And it was under King Kanishka in his Mahayana Buddhism where we find the caste system in India. Now, this was called the Shaka era. Shaka means in Sanskrit foreigners. You see, Sanskrit did not come about until the AD. It was created by a Brahmin by the name of Panini, who created the Sanskrit language. Now, after King Kanishka, during the Shaka era came about, another era came in India. It was the era of the Hindu. The Hindu era is the first time in the history of modern mankind, or mankind period, where we find racism, because Hinduism was based, they used a word called Varna. Varna means color, and they came up with a caste system. Now, concurrently, while there was no Buddhism in India, Buddhism prospered in Africa. Now, the people who were called Buddhists, they were known as the Naga. The Naga means snake or serpent or dragon. You can see in the pictures where at the Buddhist temples or throughout Japan and China, you see the Naga. You see the Naga because it was the Buddhist who brought the Naga or the snake. You can look in Cambodia where you see the largest Buddhist temple in the world. See, please understand, ladies and gentlemen, that Korea, Japan, and China, all of these places were originally black people. You see, it was only during the time of the Buddha that the nation called Japan was established. And when Buddhism eventually got to Japan, about 1,500 years after the death of the Buddha, Buddhism was based on the Black Buddha image of the at Todaji Temple. It was called the Cosmic Buddha. But anyway, let's hurry up and bring this Black Buddhist lecture to a conclusion. You see, history shows us that there was a fight between the Buddhists and the Brahmins. Now, as we told you, the Buddhists of ancient Africa, they were the Nubians. You can look at the picture of the Nubians and you see the Naga snake on the Nubians. The Nubians advanced in science, they advanced in culture. The Nubians eventually would conquer Egypt. Egypt would conquer the Nubians. But both people practiced Buddhism. Now, history shows that there was a fight between the Brahmins and the Buddhists, and the Brahmins would eventually win the fight. Now, the original Jews who came from India to Africa, they were called the tribe of Judah, and they were Buddhist. Now, there was a fight between the Brahmins and the Buddhists, and the Brahmins won. You see, the tribe of Judah, they were black people, and the tribe of the Persians had then turned white, and they were Hindu. And so what they did was the Brahmins rewrote the history, and later black people and white people would take on the religion of the Brahmin. They would take on the religions of Brahmanism, and Brahmanism would later go on to spread throughout the world, because the people of Africa, the people of Europe would later adopt the religion of the Brahmin. Now, it was a Brahmin, which there's no archaeological, anthropological evidence of this Brahmin, but this Brahmin would go on to influence the whole world. He was a Brahmin. Later in life, a Brahmin became Abraham. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the original Buddhists, if you Google it, they were called the Samaritans. You read the story of the priest, the Levite, and the Good Samaritan. Well, the Samaritans were the Buddhist people who practiced. Now, the evidence that we have of the Samaritans and the Buddhists is that we find, and throughout Europe, you would see what is called the Black Madonna. The Black Madonnas are the image of the Buddha and his mother, Maya. Now, December 25th that means the day of Krishna, because Christianity comes from the Buddhists who are called Krishnas. The Krishnas were eventually became the Hindu. Anyway, you can get very deep into this. I think that we have given you a good, quick, terse Buddhist lecture. My lecture today, this is my Black Buddhist History Lecture. I am Anthony F. Elmore, bringing you another exciting Black Buddhist lecture. And it is, we chant Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, which means we awaken to the correct law of cause and effect teachings. Thank you very much.
Black Panther is a world leader. That's a responsibility that other superheroes don't commonly have, that he has to look out for an entire nation.
Soon, there will only be the conquered and the conquerors.
The Dora Milaje are women who pledged their lives to the throne and to the security of the kingdom. Wakanda forever! My character, Okoye, is the general of the armed forces as a whole.
Okoye represents the old guard and tradition, while my character, Nakia, challenges tradition.
You get to decide what kind of king you are going to be.
Nakia was born to be a warrior. She was born with a warrior spirit.
I got into a disagreement. Made a bit of a mess.
Training was very, very interesting. The Dora have a way of fighting that was supposed to be inspired by moving as one. The Dora work together to take down somebody, like the fight we have with Killmonger.
Step into the spotlight.
Actions there, it's not your typical film. raw. It's real.
Don't freeze.
I never freeze.